Hello, sisters. Welcome to the Sacred Medicine Podcast, weaving powerful, soulful practices into functional medicine. Step into this beautiful space of devotion and explore everything from nurturing foods, rituals, sexuality, and awakening your innate sensuality. It is time to own your radiance. This is the Sacred Medicine Podcast. Hello and welcome back to the Sacred Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Margaret Romero, and today's guest is Elena Lipson. She is a Divine Self-Care mentor, speaker, transformational coach, and retreat leader. She is also the creator of the Divine Self-Care Circle MasterMind, a guided, soul-igniting journey for women who are ready to say yes to reawakening their divine feminine and redefining the hustle in exchange for creating a life they love with ease, grace, and a slower pace. So, she is the self-care diva. And if you guys have listened to my podcast in the past, you know that self-care is not only a huge part of my life every day, actually, it's also something that I am a huge proponent of. And I feel that it's completely necessary, if not vital, to a woman's health. So after I took her course, her 21-day course, and knowing that she is just so into self-care, I knew that I just had to interview her. So today, you'll learn about how women can actually slow down and start implementing some self-care into their daily life. And, how to just actually find that free time to do that. Because I know that's a really common complaint. Well, I don't really have enough time to do self-care. I really don't have enough time to do this and that. And so she really tells you how to actually create some free time in your life, so then you can start implementing some of these really beautiful self-care practices. And, also her daily rituals. I mean, the self-care diva, what else would you want to know? Like what she does on a daily basis. It's really quite beautiful. So listen in and enjoy the show. Hello and welcome back to the Sacred Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Margaret Romero, and today's guest is Elena Lipson. I am so happy you're here, Elena, because I took your 21-day self-care, I think it was a workshop. It was a 21-day digital thing, and I loved it. I really loved all of it. And so I know you are the Divine Self-Care mentor, and I just had to have you on the podcast today. So welcome.
Thank you so much. Just a small correction. It's Elena, but not a problem.
Oh, Elena. Okay.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, I've been just waiting for this call, this interview. So I know that this is kind of your thing and this is your jam, self-care. And it is mine, and it's what I do on a daily basis. It's what I teach my patients. It is what it's one of the reasons why I even created this podcast to begin with. How did it all start for you, and why did it become so important to you?
Yeah, I feel like it was a series of events that happened, like it is for many women, and the women who end up coming to me. It's usually like a series of events that finally there's this point of like, I'm just tired of being tired, and I know there's a new way, and I keep hearing this self-care thing, and okay, let's try it. But for me, it really was doing things the opposite way. But I wouldn't call it bad. I mean, for me, I was in my 20s working in corporate, and I honestly think there's a time and place for kind of that, like, I'm going to get up and rock it and just work all day and not sleep and, that kind of attitude. It was a time in my life where I was definitely go-getter, climbing the corporate ladder, grew up in New York City, and I moved to California, and I continued that sort of pace where, vacation once a year, work through the weekend, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think on the one hand, it was definitely a time and place for me to do that, but my body didn't agree. So probably every 3 to 4 months, I would call it seasonal flu, which doesn't exist. I just named it that, but my body would just sort of shut down and I would get what felt like the flu, and I would be forced to take time off work and be home for 3, 4, 5 days, whatever it took to heal. And it went on like that literally for years. And I just thought it was normal. Like it just happened. And so for me, the turning point came when I got pregnant. I was 30, just before, actually I turned 30 when I was pregnant, and I had him when I was 30. And we moved to from California to Washington State we mindfully chose a slower pace of life. So now I'm literally looking out the window and see forest and bluebirds and, squirrels.
Mm-hmm.
A very different place to be. And so my environment was slowing down a little bit, but I was now raising, a little kid. And I actually started my first online business when he was probably 6 months old. So I had him in one arm and I was working with the other hand, typing and building my online website and all the technical stuff that goes with it. So even though I was out of corporate, I was still going at that pace. But now you throw in a child that means that I had less sleep and my eating was a little out of whack and my energy was all funky and my hormones were all crazy. And so, moved to a new place, had a baby, started a business all at once.
Oh my gosh.
And what happened was my body, I couldn't quite tease out what was the cause, right? Because there was so much change so quickly for me. And I sort of shifted out of the 9 to 5 and I went into like 24-hour mode. So I was having these really random, which actually I've heard from a lot of women. I have like these random pains that were like my PMS got really, really painful and my sleep was all off and I was gaining and losing weight. But again, it was hard to tease any of it out as being related to any one thing because so much had changed. When my son was about 2 years old and I had been running my online business for a few years, I hit this critical point where my pain in my body was so bad that I would literally have to stop and like bend over.
Oh my gosh.
Couldn't stand through it. It was so painful.
Okay.
And I was still getting sick every once, every like quarter, and I started getting sinus infections, and my body was just having this general sort of like, I'm too young to be experiencing so many things at one time. But I sort of wrote it off to, I'm a new mom and I have a little kid and my sleep is off and all these external socially valid explanations. And I had never been to a naturopath. I grew up sort of either not going to a doctor, doing our, Russian remedies at home or going to a doctor, but only when things got really bad. And I would consider that really bad. So I finally went to a naturopath because here in the Pacific Northwest, there's a lot of them. And I just started hearing I should go to one, get a blood test done. Maybe it's allergies or something. And I went to a couple, but I finally went to one who said we should do this specific kind of blood test because something's going on. And that was the first time I ever heard the word autoimmune disease. And I ended up with, I guess it was Epstein-Barr. And so what was happening to me was every time stress hormones elevated in my body, I would feel like I had the flu. So I reverse engineered all those years and thought, oh my gosh, that's what was happening to me. And so it had just gotten to the point where my glands were constantly swollen and I just felt like I had the flu anytime I didn't get enough sleep or prolonged periods of stress, which is what I was having, right? So I moved, I quit my corporate job, I started my own business, I had a baby, like all these things finally put my body over the edge. So I, for the first time in my life, decided I was not going to work because I worked since I was like 14 years old. I even lied about my age earlier than that to work because it was just in my culture. Like you just work, you make money, you do your thing, you have to be independent. And so I talked to my husband. I'm like, I need to change. Something has to give. And I don't know what, but I want to be present for our son. I want to be present for myself, for our marriage. And I just knew something had to change. So I sold my online business. I decided to go to a yoga teacher retreat training that was like a 6-month thing here where I live. And from that point, that's where, thank goodness, the woman who was the leader mentor, she was like this 25 plus year psychology, teacher plus a yoga teacher plus this like amazing mystic. She really helped us. There was like 20 of us in the circle talk about the things we weren't talking about, emotions and rituals and what you're putting in your body and like processing emotions and connection. And it was such a healing time for me that it was the beginning of what with now, is my business now, which is teaching self-care practices and rituals to women who are at that point for whatever reason. So that was my journey. And it was definitely like, I'm still on it. I think it's always a practice, especially when you know what you know and you can't turn it off.
Yes.
You can't go against it.
Totally.
And, now I'm at a place where my business is growing and I'm traveling quite a bit and I'm hosting retreats and I'm speaking on stages, and all of that takes energy. And it's really a conscious, present experience to be able to trust your own pace and to trust your own choices. And I've been talking a lot about what are the real metrics of success and sort of redefining them for women, because I do work with so many entrepreneurs and women who are out there creating that, there's statistics out there, like over the last decade, women have started businesses 5 times faster than the national average, but so many of them don't make money or succeed because I think women end up trying it in this very directed masculine corporate way. And it just doesn't work because you end up depleting yourself.
Exactly.
So that's my jam, like you said.
Yeah. It's definitely one of the reasons why I created this podcast to begin with, because I just found that all of the women that I knew that were coming into my practice, and even my friends who are driven, successful women, or even mothers, were completely depleted. Adrenals, hormones, hair falling out, libido shot or non-existent. Yeah. So they just weren't flourishing. They weren't vital at all. And I think self-care is huge, and it does take effort. on a daily basis. And it's something that I do every single day without, now it's more, it comes obviously easier to me because it's just, I incorporate it in, and I know that it, and there's also certain days of the week that I do certain things. If I go to get a massage, or if I go to my infrared sauna, then those are Fridays. And so those are days that I haven't booked and scheduled. So, I would love to know, now I know why it was so important for you, and you practice it now on a daily basis. So what does that look like? Share a little bit behind the scenes of self-care for you. And is it always different every single day, or do you have a routine in the morning?
Yeah. So some of it is different and some of it is exactly the same. And some of it is really dependent upon, I live in a place with seasons. So it changes based on the seasons of nature, seasons of my life, seasons of my son's school year. But what I teach and I have a year-long program just so you get a sense of how much content there really is in terms of this. But it's called the Divine Self-Care Circle, and there's a topic every month, and there's, live calls. So there's a lot to dig into. But the 5 anchors of what I teach throughout the entire year. And I had to reverse engineer this because there are elements that I think have to be present every day, or at least most days. And one of those are daily rituals. And the other one, which I'm going to talk about today, which I think if anyone takes anything away, this is really a place to start. And I just call it the magic morning practice, because to me, it kind of feels like magic when I do it. It unlocks all the possibility, and my energy is different, and my mindset is shifted. So that's something I do every single day, even when I'm on vacation, in some form, even if it takes me 5 minutes. And my practice now, when my son goes to school, during the regular school year, it's usually about I would say 45 minutes to an hour or more, depending on the morning. But most mornings, there's 3 elements to this practice. It's for mind, for body, and for spirit. And they're really simple, even if you only have 1 minute. Let me just, I want to frame something for just so that people, because I think women who are already doing a lot get really tense when we tell them to do more. And it's not about doing more. Really, self-care for me has become this idea that it's how we do things that we do. All the things we're already doing, waking up, going to sleep, cleaning our bodies, getting dressed, they can be done in a way that just slows down the pace a little bit. And that way it gives you just enough presence of mind to get still enough or to be intentional about it versus just going through the motions, which does not feel good. So the 3 elements are, again, mind, body, spirit, and they're as simple as taking a few minutes to write down gratitudes or mantras or whatever it is. I love to write, so I can just sit there and write for a long time. But if if I am in a hurry, or if I do feel like, oh, I just want to spend a little bit of time on this, I'll just spend a few minutes writing down simple mantras like, I am playful, I am intuitive, I am organized, I am abundant. And I can literally feel, like if I had, those things, those like brainwave testers attached to my brain, I think you would tell, like there's actual activity happening in my brain because I could feel it. I can feel little impulses going off, like it keeps me up and I feel more positive. It works. And then the second thing, and I'm a big dancer. I love to dance. I'm a Zumba freak. Like I go 4 times a week. So for me, I will just put on the music in the morning and I will do some like circling or shaking or just moving and stretching my body to really awaken my body from head to toe. Because I think one of the symptoms that women are experiencing right now that I work with are they're literally living from the neck up. Thinking, planning, organizing, logic, all of that. But the body there's a disconnection there. And so like, when was the last time you had a really good belly laugh? Or when was the last time you had a really good orgasm or experience pleasure with your entire body? Like those are the conversations I want to be having with women leaders, because that's where we really get turned on and lit up and then have the energy to do the work that we're meant to do. Yes. So that's the second piece, is really embodying, getting into your body. And then the third element is something spiritual. And this could be super different for everyone. And mine varies, everything from lighting a candle to just sitting silently to doing something I've just started doing recently that Dr. Christian Northrup recommends, that she did on Super Soul Sunday. It was called a Divine Love Activation. And that's just like a little bit of a, speaking a little prayer and then sitting for a few minutes and noticing your thoughts. It's really simple. Like I evolved that as I feel, but it's some sense of getting still and present with what's alive for you that day and taking time to set your intention, but also to listen. For me, I've always been very intuitive, and the more stillness and quiet I have in my life, the more I can hear it. The more noise and distraction I have in my life, the less I can hear it. So it's a priority for me to at least a few minutes in the morning to just keep the lights low, don't touch my phone, and just take a deep breath and listen. And that's how I know what I'm going to do. Like that's how I know where I am, or, how to adjust my day if I need to, based on my seasons and my cycle and the moon and things like that, because I think we are so disconnected from our own cycles if we don't check in with our body and we try to push through on a day that we really need to just like be on the couch with a blanket watching Netflix.
Right. And having like, permission and feeling okay with that. I mean, like, you know what? It's just, I'm on my moon cycle right now and I am not going to the gym.
Right. I mean, what if we really track that a little bit? And what if we, when we're ovulating or when we're in that space and we're so magnetic and we're like lit up, what if we create it on those days? And I know that people have schedules and it's hard for me even to do that. But even if I just start noticing like, wait, the first day of my cycle, I just want to be on the couch. Do not talk to me. I need like, really honoring at least not scheduling something massive. Like I'm not going to record a bunch of videos on that day because my body just wants to lay down, and giving myself permission to reschedule things if I need to, and honor that versus pushing through, which is where a lot of women go. And there are times to push through and get it done, right? Like don't distract yourself. We have important work to do. And with that, there are times where pushing through is not the right thing for your body. And we can always ask for help, get support, hire that thing out, whatever we need to do. That's what I help women do, is to figure out what we're doing that we don't need to be doing and what do we want to be doing that we can have more energy for. So that's how I start my day every day. It feels like a very core routine. And I have many, but that's definitely one that is such a great way to start the day. And when I have something important to do, like speak on stage or host a retreat, my morning routine expands. I don't remember who said this, but it's like, if you're busy, meditate for an hour. If you're really busy, meditate for 2 hours.
Right.
That's the essence of my morning routine. Like when I have something super important to do where my energy needs to be really lit up and big and fill an entire room of, people, that's when my morning routine gets really profoundly bigger because I need to show up in a different way.
Now, what do you, let's say on a typical morning, then maybe things would be, maybe you're sitting in silence or you're writing longer, but is there like something that's like, oh my God, it's the morning of, and I need to do this and this because I'm speaking today?
Yeah. So if I'm writing, I will take lots of time to go in there and set my intention to clear and release any fear, like address it. Like, I'm feeling really scared today. Please let me have the right words. And I really talk to like divine or my angels or whoever I'm called to connect with that day, or just the universe, like, dear universe, please, let me trust how the day unfolds. Let me trust any detours and pivots. Let me have the words in the moment. And if I should forget, let me trust the silence in the moment, because that's happened to me sometimes where I'm like, I have no idea what I was just going to say. And it was the perfect thing. It was like I was talking about trusting your own voice and I totally forgot what I was going to say. And it turned into a really funny, poignant moment that I didn't plan, but looked like I planned. So, really being able to be so present that when things happen that are unexpected, as they will, you can trust that you have the wherewithal and the the guidance to say what you need to say in the moment, whether it's one-on-one coaching a client or with your child or partner or whoever. That to me feels like what I call in that morning. So I definitely write more. I make any notes I need to. My dancing gets definitely at least 20 minutes of dancing and like raising my vibration and my energy till I could feel just the joy pouring out of me. And then for sure the meditation, the stillness. And sometimes I even call in, like, is there anything that I need to know today? Like, is there something that I need to bring in today? Like, what do I need to, is there, any intuitive guidance? Because sometimes I've changed things on the fly, or I tell a story from that morning, or like when I was meditating this morning, this is what happened. Like, I was so distracted, I couldn't even get present. And I share that because it's all part of the journey. I don't want people to think that, my life is 100% aligned in every single moment. I trust the chaos sometimes. If I can't get in it, maybe I'll lie flat, or maybe I'll go for a walk in nature. Like, I trust that. So the mornings do look different, but when I have something bigger, I do really count on my morning practice to build a foundation for the day.
And what do you say to women who, do you counter this? I know a lot of women who come to you are probably finding that they're needing this and they don't know how to squeeze it into their life. They don't know what that looks like. And how do you teach women who are not only very driven and sort of like in their masculine all the time, all day, 24/7, and just, constantly going. How do you have them slow down to actually perform and have some of these really beautiful self-care practices?
Yeah, it's a great question. A couple of things come to mind. One is I fully, coming from, as I was an organizational psychology major, so I did all those psychology classes and studies and, all those things. I truly believe, just as kind of a geek of neurology, that the quality of your work actually diminishes after 3 to 4 hours tops. So first of all, I would say, let's be really honest about what does a 10-hour workday look like for you? Like, how much of that are you actually doing quality inspired work? Or, if you're running a machine with a cog in it and you're turning a wheel that has to get done for 10 hours, fine. I would say the quality of that probably lowers after a few hours too. So there's some real honest conversations that need to happen, because I don't think a 70-hour work week is actually as productive as it could be. I remember when I was actually working in corporate, and for the last few months, I was on not a maternity leave, but I couldn't stand. I was a corporate trainer and I was teaching classes and I just couldn't stand anymore. And so my boss gave me the permission to work from home doing some curriculum creation. And I would grab my computer and go to a coffee shop and sit. And in 3 hours, I can do what would have taken me an 8-hour day because of the distractions. So,
yes.
And having worked some temp jobs growing up, like they would give me an assignment that was supposed to take 2 days and I would finish it in like 2 hours. I'm like, this was supposed to take 2 days. It was filing. You focus, you get it done, you're done. Right. So I think, first of all, there needs to be a reframe on what are the real expectations of what you need to get done? How much of it is real distraction time, like
That's
Facebook
true.
time?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a prioritization of work that could happen. And that's why in my program, the first thing we do is do this sacred goals sort of dream calendar session where we take a look at the entire year and think of what are the outcomes that we want to happen. We ask really good questions. What are the things we've been tolerating? What are the areas that need to be hired out? What are the areas I need more support in that I've still been doing? Like like, am I still answering all my emails? Do I really need to do that? Do I really need to be the one who designs all my graphics? Do I really need to be the one, who answers all of my customer service queries? Like, some of those things can be hired out in a very efficient way that will clear your energy to do more of the creative presence kind of work that you need to do. So that's a big thing. The other thing is what I have found very, very clearly, and I don't know if you can, until you experience it, and you have to really experience it to believe it, but I want women to just go on a little bit of a trust here. Now every Thursday on my calendar, and I can tell you a little bit more about my calendar, but every Thursday is my self-care day. But it's not just a self-care day. It's like it's my day to completely trust my inner GPS. So I'll do my Zumba class in the morning, and then I'll just say, what do I want to do now? What do I want to do now? I don't know. Let me wander the streets and see where I go. I mean, not wander the streets, but where I live, like downtown. Where do I want to eat? And I kind of play with my intuition a little bit. And that day, spending a few hours with no agenda, with no to-do list, with no computer, with no podcast, with nothing to do, actually fuels my creativity for the entire week. And it's one of those things that I think people overlook and don't feel like it has enough return on investment. But I would say if you could give yourself at least an hour a week like that with nothing to do, just spaciousness, it could fuel that inspired creativity. So when I work with women to create a dream calendar, we look at the year, the quarters, the months, the weeks, and the days. And we make sure that we get the fun stuff on the calendar, the white space on the calendar, the play time with your friends on the calendar, the date nights, if those need to happen. So that you said it earlier, which is like, it's this permission granted to put yourself on the calendar first. And then it makes it much easier to do the next thing, which is you can say no to things because you've got things on the calendar, or if you can say yes to things because you have the space in your calendar, or if you really want to do it, you can move something. But, I think it's one of those things that we have no problem, rescheduling things. And like, we never cancel a date on a girlfriend or, an important meeting, but we tend to push ourselves lower and lower on that list. So for me, I know it's like a really big topic. So what I focus teaching more than anything now is reverse engineering it. So what are the little things I can do every day that help me to feel in my body, that help me to feel connected to my intuition? And those are connected to how I do the things I already do. So if I'm already eating lunch, how can I make it a sacred practice? Mm-hmm. How can I pause to sit down? Maybe go to a restaurant, but make it like a quiet time. Maybe I will write in my journal. Maybe I'll just sit and actually taste the food. Or maybe, so whatever it is, like, I'm not saying you have to do 10 new things this week, because I know it's definitely, maybe a little bit of resistance to doing new things at first. But once you start to realize it's not a what, it's more of a how, that when I wake up, I have how I wake up. I want to wake up slowly. So I might do it 10 minutes earlier. I might have a soft light instead of a harsh light. I might take a minute to play some music in the morning while I put on my makeup instead of checking my email every 2 seconds. It's the how of what you're doing that starts to make this beautiful quilt to your day of feeling present versus feeling scattered and distracted and stressed out and leading to all the symptoms that, you deal with in your work.
Absolutely. I really love that, because there are definitely days where I'll have an afternoon that's free. And yes, I could definitely fill it up with work. I could, we all can. If we had free time, we can certainly do maybe a load of laundry or whatever it is. And so I love being able to have some free time and giving myself permission to be like, you know what, I think I'm just going to go and treat myself to a really nice lunch and journal. And it's like, I don't need to have anyone there. And it's just that quiet time and having some, beautiful food served with maybe a glass of wine or not, if it's midday or whatever. And just bringing a journal or bringing a book and just having that quiet downtime, or maybe a really like a favorite magazine of yours to just enjoy with no distraction, or even just taking time to like go to a coffee shop and just sitting there and just like reading and having some like a yummy latte. Yes.
Just slowing it down enough to enjoy, because I don't know. It's like there's, ultimately each morning, my intentions have gotten more and more simple, and it's just to be present for every conversation, for myself, for the things that I'm doing, so that at the end of the day, I don't feel like I forget, like, what did I do today versus really being present for it. And the women leaders that I work with, for me, it's about helping them to really create a foundation of practices so they can have the energy to grow a business, to really speak and use their voice, and to do it all without assuming that they're going to have to feel overwhelmed or burned out, or, have to go find a doctor afterwards. Let's do some preventative wellness practices so that we can really do the work we're meant to do. Because if you're tired and if you're exhausted, and I've been there, like, oh,
me too.
Like, do I really need to do this? Like, I want to. So how can because, I think we assume, and this is probably a whole different conversation, but as we get older, there's so many assumptions about our energy, our stamina, our sex drive, our hormones. And I really love someone like Dr. Northrup, who just came out with that book, Goddesses Don't Age or Never Age. And she really busts all those myths. And I'm so on board with her, because there doesn't have to be a decline. There doesn't have to be,
right.
But there will be if you're in a constant state of hormonal stress over time, right? So the self-care practices are ways to really give you a chance to release and reset and nourish deeply and rest. Like, rest. Does not even saying the word, it feels so good.
Doesn't it?
I'm going to go rest. I'll see you later. I'm going to go rest. Like, what?
But I also am a firm believer in hiring out.
Yes.
I cannot. There's some things that I just really don't want to do. And one of them is food shopping, which part of me is, I don't know. How do you feel about women hiring out people to clean their home, to do errands for them, even if it's 2 hours a week? I mean, you pay someone, I don't know, $15 an hour for a couple hours a week. So you don't have to do the grocery shopping, or even have, you can order your food online, and then it comes to you like on a certain day of the week. So you don't have to go and spend your time, because that's at least an hour. And so then it gives you an hour to like do something else, whether that is reading, or, your gratitude, or getting a mani-pedi, or going to get a massage. I mean, it frees up your time. Is that something else that you teach women to kind of, if there's something you don't have to do, hire it out?
Absolutely. I think the phrase of allow your wants to become your needs. And just, there's a subtlety in there. Like, I want it. I want to give myself permission to need that. So that's what I need in order to do my business. And I am a huge supporter of hiring out. Not only are you, putting out there, like, really the abundance that you're experiencing, you can hire someone to do their thing. I think about 2 years ago, I hired someone to come in every 2 weeks to clean my bathrooms and my kitchen. And we have a small house. We don't need very much, but honestly, it takes me like 4 hours to clean 3 full bathrooms, and I could be doing other things like
Absolutely.
being with my family, so I do that. And I remember the validation of it was like, the first time she came in and she was like whistling and so happy, and this is what she's doing. She's trying to make some money for her family, on the side. And she was phenomenal, the woman who came to clean. And I booked a really high-end client that day. And I'm like, if I was not, present, that wouldn't have happened. Right. So it was such a huge validation for me. And that was like my first sort of, yes, this is worth it. And so I live in a place where I can't get food delivered, but I totally would. Like, actually, a good friend who lives in LA just signed up with this program that it's an app, and she basically put in her entire Trader Joe's shopping list, and it showed up, and she's like, this is the best thing ever. And I totally had that thought, like, I waste an hour, not waste an hour, but like, I really could be just home not doing this, like,
right.
dealing with the parking and dealing with all of that. And so I definitely support women hiring out things that will support them in getting more rest, being more nourished, doing the things that they really want to do. And in your business, that's the first place to look as well. Like, in your home, in your business, what are the things that I can hire out for? Maybe barter, if that's a thing, that you want to do. I think if there's a want, there's a way. And I would even start with making a list of like, what are the dream things that I would hire out, and start with one, something that you can hire, like mama helpers or whatever. It's not that expensive for someone to come in once a week and organize your papers, or even do the food shopping. Like you said, if that's something that you don't enjoy doing, why suffer through it? Especially if you're working on building a business.
Right.
And there's arguments to like, oh, when I make this much money, then I'll get help. Yes. And what if you could give yourself permission to do that now, so that you can make more money now and support someone else doing it? So I have someone who does my graphic design. I have a VA who's like heaven sent. She does a lot of stuff for me. I have a woman who comes in to clean. I would definitely do the shopping thing if it was in my area. But I think that it's not an easy thing for a lot of women to do, but once you try it, I think it could be, if you just change your lens on it a little bit, to that you're hiring someone and giving them an opportunity to do their thing. And that makes you feel better and more of like the CEO of your life, and not just a victim of your own circumstances. You can really take some control there. So
I know there's so much resistance around that, right?
So much.
Hiring out. I mean, it was earlier this year. I had a personal assistant, and it was great. She would do everything for me. I would give her a list of what I needed at 3 different supermarkets, Whole Foods and Trader Joe's, and then post office. I mean, these things all take time. It takes hours out of my day. And then because I was in the midst of creating this 4-week program, and I'm like, I need to get this done. And so I was really focused, and I just didn't want to have to, but I still needed to eat, I just didn't want to go to the supermarket. So it was great. And I do have someone that cleans my place now. And I'm actually going to be probably getting that personal assistant back again in the new year.
Nice. Yeah, now I'm thinking about that. Like, oh, I could probably have someone in the local area who's, a student or something like that, because we do have that in the area. I live in a smaller town, so it's definitely easier to do that in some areas. But I can see that happening for me. So thank you for that inspiration. I like that.
Yeah, even just a couple hours a week. I mean, they filed for me. It was really good. I loved it.
I like it.
So let's see. How do you bring this now? Would this be something? I know this is really good for women who have businesses who don't have the time. Are there any other strategies for women who are entrepreneurs? I mean, aside from maybe taking the time and, you had some practices here. Are there any additional things?
Yeah, I think especially for entrepreneurs, self-care is that it's like that thing we do when we get to that certain point. So what I hear most often is, oh, when I hit that income, then I'll book my monthly massage, or I will hire that person. And I think more than anything, it's time to reassess how you want to be in your business every day. So the kind of rituals, the business rituals that I put in to practice have to do with the actual process of my business. So like when I go out for my morning walk and I have a question that I'm pondering, that to me is part of my work. Like I go out and I try to work something out instead of sitting at my desk trying to work it out. I will go out into nature and walk in the forest and work it out and come back usually with some inspiration. I set up weekly money dates for myself. That's a ritual that I think all entrepreneurs need to practice. And the way I do that is I go to a coffee shop and I get myself a latte and I sit with good Wi-Fi and I check in. Like I know my numbers, I know what worked, what didn't work, what went through, what didn't go through, like where am I? And that's to me, that's a self-care and a business ritual. So it's like one of those, I take myself out to breakfast, I buy myself a coffee and I check in with my money, and it makes it such a pleasurable experience. And so many women don't know their financial situation, or they give the power away to their accountant and they don't ever look at it. And I've definitely been there. It's easy to not look at it, especially if someone else is doing it. But I think it gives me a sense of, where I am in terms of program creation or how many clients I might need, or just I can get a sense of my goals if I know where I am financially. And I'd rather know, even if it's a little scary, than not know if I'm meeting my goals or not.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if we expand our definition of a self-care ritual to, especially for entrepreneurs who can overlay that self-care ritual as a business practice, because the more you get to know your finances, the different decisions you'll make in your business. And for me, like my gym membership is a self-care practice that benefits my business because I have the physical energy to do the things I do. Like when I run a retreat and it's a 4 or 5 day retreat, that's a physical stamina thing. Like I need to be in good shape in order to expand in my business and to show up with energy that I need to have. For the women who have big goals out there and big dreams, taking care of your physical body is as important as taking care of your business plan for the year, so that you have, because I see so many women and this was a fear that I had, that if my business grew too big and I was making a lot of money, whatever, a certain number, and I had all this attention, publicly, that my body wouldn't be able to handle it. And I think that came from this rhythm that I was in, getting sick every few months, working so hard. And I've had to re-engineer those thoughts and release those old ideas and old stories and redefine them for myself. And so I have mantras like, the less I do, the more I make, the more I play, the more I make, those mantras keep me remembering that when I start my day focusing on how I want to feel, on movement, on connection to divine guidance, then when I get to my business, I'm in a very inspired, enthusiastic mindset versus tired and uninspired and struggling to have the courage. Sometimes a huge shift in your business happens because you've had the 30 seconds of courage to do that one thing, to reach out to someone, to make that phone call, to post that video, to write that sales page. But that takes energy and stamina. Mm-hmm. So I think that's for me, the core of self-care is about learning to manage your spiritual and physical and emotional energy so that you can show up and do the things you want to do. And that entails rest and physical workouts and
true.
Time with friends and good sleep. I loved when Ariana Huffington went on TED Talk for her 7-minute talk, and she talked about sleep. And to me, that was such a huge thing, because I'm like, yes, women need to sleep. Everything changes when I get good sleep. So it's like we are no longer, we're not living in a time anymore where you go to work and you have that persona, and then you go home and you have that persona. We are embedded. We are the work that we're doing, right? So the way we show up is really tied into how we're feeling on the inside. If we're aligned, if we're present, you could be scared as hell. It doesn't matter. But that part's going to be there no matter what. But it's how can you step through that? Do you have enough physical, spiritual, emotional energy to walk through that moment that's going to get you where you want to go?
Yeah.
Or are you going to be so tired and depleted that you're going to look for the reason that I was just so burned out, and then be scared. To me, this is a whole spiritual conversation, but it's so important that the women out there who are called to do work in the world, who are leaders, that they take care of themselves so well that they really can do that work, because so many women get burned out on the path.
It's so true. Yeah, I'm so glad that you said it that way, because I think with the rise in our consciousness, we're just seeing more and more women stepping up, and they're stepping up to do the work, but then they're taking on too much, and then they're kind of not necessarily in their feminine, and they're really more in their masculine. So it's really causing, and I see it in my practice every day. They're coming in with just autoimmune issues and just a slew of chronic illnesses. So I definitely see how self-care it's a huge part of my life, and it really needs to be a part of everyone's life, women. And, the sleep, going back to the sleep, I don't wake up to an alarm anymore. I don't know. Do you set an alarm? at night?
I set it because I have to get my son up for school, but I rarely hear it because I wake up beforehand anyway, and I just turn it off and lay there and do my gratitude for my body and,
Yeah.
kind of do my little stretching. I have this little salt lamp that I wake up to so that it's a really gentle light. And it tells my body that it's time to get up. So I rarely hear it because I mean, my body gets it. Like it's time to get up and, so I totally do not like waking up to alarms, but I set it sort of just in case because my son does need to be at school at a certain time.
I do not wake up to an alarm anymore. I do not have to wake up to, I don't have children, so I don't have that kind of, I usually give myself time. So meetings, patients, they don't start until later on in the morning. And I never book anything early. And I certainly don't even check my emails first thing. It's my same thing as you, very similar. I also have a very long routine in the morning. I do not check my phone or respond to anything until after actually I've eaten breakfast and I've had some inspirational reading time and gratitude, writing time and prayer and all of that. So
I love it. I love it. You're my soul sister for sure. It's so good. And that's one thing I actually gave myself permission to do this year, which I had that little bit of a moment where I was like, oh, by the time I get my son to school and come back, I feel like I'm rushing to my first client on the phone. And I have the beautiful, I love the fact that I work from my home office. That's where I am right now. And I get to work with women all over the world, just, via video conferencing, which is huge. But what I was doing was I was scheduling them at 9:30, which caused me to rush. And I was sitting at the dinner table with my husband. I was like, oh, I was so rushed this morning. And all of a sudden I sat there and I had one of those smack the forehead moments. Wait a minute, this is my business. I could start it a half hour later. Oh, I think I was starting it at 9. Then I moved it to 9:30. And I'm thinking for next year, I kind of like 10. So I think nothing before 10, because I want to really have this spaciousness, because my walks are where I get so much of my inspiration. I live in a beautiful area. So I think I want to do a 60-minute walk where I can really nourish that brainstorming, because I do, podcasts and meditations, and I create all kinds of stuff. And that takes a lot of time to just do nothing, to have that creation time. So for me, I'm I think I'm going to take it up a level, do nothing before, not schedule anything on my calendar before 10. And that all of a sudden felt like a new level of permission for myself to say, wow, that I can't wait to see what I'm going to create with that new spaciousness. So.
Oh yeah, go for it. 10 o'clock. That's kind of where I start as well. Sometimes 11. Sometimes nice. 11 if it's, if I need to. But one of the other things that I do that I feel is self-care, even though I'm not technically doing something, is I'm saying no to things as well. And so if I'm oh, I really need some, I don't know, something from the supermarket. And I look and it's 5:30, and which is crazy time to even be driving. It's crazy time at the supermarket because everybody's there and there's long lines. And no, I'm not doing that. I'll just go tomorrow, or hire it out. But I will not put myself through doing it at a certain time unless there's some dire emergency and I need something critical. But I can't imagine what that would be.
Chocolate.
That's like chocolate, yes.
There's no chocolate in the house. You gotta go.
But there's so many times where I'm no, not doing that. I actually don't even feel and the gym is something that it's winter time, and I'm just not a winter girl. And I also am not a winter girl and to go out to go to the gym. It just doesn't work for me. So it takes me an extra effort to actually get to the gym, or to do hot yoga in the wintertime. And so some days, if it's really cold, and less than in the teens, I just don't go anywhere. If I don't have to go anywhere and I'm working from home, I don't go anywhere. And I'm okay with that. Some people would be oh my God, but I have to go here and there and I have to do errands and all this. And no, I'm okay. And I don't beat myself up about it either.
Right. It sounds like what we were talking about earlier is really trusting the seasons of your life. And, everyone experiences seasons differently. If I was snowboarder. I'd be out and about all winter, but I'm not. So I take this as time to nourish and declutter and go within and do nothing. Like this is how we were meant to be in the seasons, especially for those of us living in the seasons. And right now I'm looking out the window and there's snow on the trees. So it's definitely a different energy. And for me, I love going to the gym because that's where I do Zumba. And for me, it's like that heat that I'm looking for. So it's a reason that does get me out. But I totally love how you've given yourself permission to find your yes and your no. And this is what works for me. And I think more than anything, what self-care practices do for women is that they find their own rhythm and they find their own pace and their own inner rhythm. And sometimes it's exactly no, not everyone sits inside their house and makes soup all winter. That would just make society stop. But some people love being out there and some people need to be within, and you basically start to recognize what those rhythms are. And, I get it. There's times where for the last 2 days in my life, I had entire days of video recording scheduled for my new year of my program coming out. Well, my son had 2 snow days. So there you go.
Right.
Honestly, part of me was like, oh, what a relief. Because honestly, my body just wanted to rest. I was not sometimes you do just have to do it. If I had studio time booked and maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't, I'd figure it out. But part of me was like, ooh, I get to just play in the snow. And I have built my life in a way that I have the freedom to do that. And I don't take it for granted for a second, because when I was in the corporate world, that didn't happen. That was a different way of being.
Yeah.
So I've chosen to do the work that it takes to build a business because I can do that. I can take 2 days that were scheduled for something else and say, you know what? I'm just going to play in the snow and make some tea and write some video sales scripts, between play. And that's what I'm going to get done today. And that's okay. And then I'll make it up, another time, or just trust that divine timing means that next week is better for this. So that divine trust of your own path really starts to emerge the more you take time to get still, get present, get in your body. And that's a whole different way of living life versus pushing through.
Oh, yeah. I love it. I love it. Well, the time is, I can't believe that went by so fast. I have a couple of quick questions for you. Is there any last bits of things that you wanted to discuss or feel like you need, last couple of things you want to tell the audience, the listeners?
Yeah, I think I just want to share, which I think more than anything, I want to plant a seed of curiosity so that you as the listener can just start to question for yourself. I really took the time to say, what are my metrics of success? And for me, the words that came were laughter, sister time, pleasure, ease, grace, joy, creativity time, just for the sake of creating, doodling. So I took time to really sit down and think about what are the things that I need to have in my life on a daily, weekly, monthly basis that make me feel like I'm actually enjoying life now and not pushing it off to someday. So that's the thing that for me, that these are the results of self-care, that I do have reminders to just not take myself so seriously and to be in my body more and to say, how can I make this easier? How can I make this more fun, regardless of what I'm doing? And so just if that piques your curiosity, sit down with a journal and say, what are my metrics of success? Is it really the money? Is it really the 10-hour work days? Is it really the accolades? What is it? It could be all those things. I don't know. You have to decide for yourself. But if you at least give yourself that permission to define it for yourself, the choices that you make from that point on could be different.
Oh, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. So I have just 3 quick questions that I always end my interviews on.
Okay. The answers are chocolate, sex, and sleep. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, maybe. What is at your bedside right now?
Oh, okay. So usually there's crystals, but I took them all off last night to do full moon. They were all in the full moon. So right now I have my beautiful little Himalayan salt lamp, and I have a crystal grid, but there's no crystals on it because everything's in a beautiful tray that needs to be reset.
Oh, it sounds lovely.
Yeah.
I love the Himalayan salt lamp. Do you have the one that you mentioned before? Does that go on automatically at a certain time?
No, I just turn it on in the evening. It's like a little flip, switch flip. And it actually just it really just tells my body that it's time to start getting ready for bed. And I like the soft lighting at night.
I love it too. Let's see. What do you wear to bed?
It used to be nothing, but I have a son who's a little older now, and so it's usually just like some natural material tank top and some undies and a robe right nearby because he's got friends who sleep over, and so it's more of it's like a reality check. But someday it will be nothing again.
And what book are you reading now?
Ooh, okay, good one. I just started reading Lisa Nichols' Abundance Now, and it's really good. But I am taking recommendations for some fiction because I love fiction too. I love memoirs. I just haven't run into any good ones lately. So if you have some, I'd love recommendations. But it's really good. I actually love Lisa Nichols' voice, and she's just this really super hyper positive, successful.
I love her too.
Yeah, and she gets the self-care thing. She's also like a hustler. Like she's got the energy of 10 women. So it's definitely not exactly my pace, but I think her wisdom and her frameworks for creating and the questions she asks are really phenomenal. So I really like it. It's called Abundance Now.
Cool. Mm-hmm. I'll write that down.
But I'm a kind of a book person. I have tons of books, something going all the time.
Nice. I don't have any memoir recommendations at this time at all. Now,
a good one that I read recently, actually I read it about a year ago, but it's just right here on my table. It's called Girl Boss by Sophia Amorosa.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of it.
That was a really fun one to read.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, how can people find you?
So I am really active on Instagram almost daily. I love sharing my rituals and things that I do. And I'm on Facebook under Divine Self-Care Mentor as well. And my website is sort of the hub for everything, which is Elena, ELENA, Lipson.com.
Great. All right. And that wraps it up for today.
Awesome. And we could talk longer.
Oh, for hours. I'm sure we can share so many more self-care techniques and yeah, definitely. Well, I'm going to have you back at some point just so we can dive a little bit deeper, I
would love to.
Maybe, I don't know, jam on like our top 20 favorite self-care things. They're so easy. Like 20, I think 20 is easy to come up with for me. I'm sure for you.
Well, I've got my 21 self-care rituals, so we can talk about some of those.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for spending the time today. It was lovely chatting with you on self-care. It's such an important part of both of our lives, and I hope that our listeners start incorporating this into theirs as well.
Thank you. And I'd love to actually gift your listeners the 21 Days of Self-Care program.
Oh, yeah.
I can send you the link, and all they need to do is put their name and email, and they'll just start receiving the rituals. And I just tell people to save them in a folder because it's just emails you'll have access to forever. But, if you delete them, then I'd have to resend it and everything. So if that works for you, I'd love to gift them that so they can just see where it goes.
Absolutely. I'll include that in the show notes.
Awesome.
Do you want to tell us what it is now, or is there a link you just want to send it to me separately?
I'll have to send it to you separately because I can just name it like bit.ly. Your podcast name. I'll have to create the link for you guys, which is not a problem. I'll have my assistant do it. And
perfect.
Yeah, it's just 21 days of just really simple things. Nothing world shaking, but it's just like to experience making little pockets of time for yourself and doing fun rituals.
That sounds perfect. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Have a beautiful rest of your week.
Thank you so much. You too.
Thank you so much for listening. And to learn more about Elena and for all the show notes, head on over to margaretromero.com/episode 14. Have a beautiful rest of your week, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye now.